What's up, everybody? Today we're going to go over the Remington 700, which I like to call the NSW Crane 700. More about that later. All right, so the Remington 700, not quite what it used to be, but it's a very reliable, it's been around a while system. And actually now the aftermarket and the copies of the 700 are kind of better. I'm thinking like Tika and whatnot. But you can still get a Remington 700 for a pretty good price, and you can even get a better price if you find a used one, because people will buy them, they'll hang on them for about 3 or 4 years, realize they never shoot it, and then they want to get it for something a little more fun, or they got to pay their power bill, whatever it might be. I alluded to, and possibly in the title I'll call this the NSW Crane 700 or sniper rifle, whatever. And why do I call it that? Well, the story is, and I don't know this for 100%, but you buy the story, not the gun. The story is this rifle was tinkered on, built, somebody from Crane worked on it, and it then went to an agency in Indiana for a while until that agency was dissolved, and then it ended up on the civilian market. So I do think that it did have some contact with Crane. I knew this agency, I knew the people from there, and so I could believe it. Also, the scope they used was actually used by the Navy on M14s. I believe it was the M25 NSW Crane, which is kind of the Navy's research site. Definitely would have had access to, some of the equipment in their inventory that they could play around with and, test and see what works. But it was built about 15, 20 years ago, so it doesn't follow the modern style of bolt rifle accessories, but it's still solid and everything is tried and true and it functions great. So we're going to start on what should be the most expensive part of any bolt rifle, allegedly. Let's get really high end. But we're going to start with the scope. Unfortunately, you cannot buy this scope new anymore. It is a Bausch & Lomb 10 by 40, non-adjustable. You can just adjust the focal plane. It's got the standard mil-dot sight, nothing fancy to it, but it is a tank and it works. The rings are arm throw lever. I think they're the Model 22 scope rings. Why we need removable scope rings on a bolt action sniper rifle, I don't know, but back 20 years ago we thought everything had to have a quick remove option. Maybe it just makes it easier in the military setting when you're swapping stuff around. I don't know. It's what came with it, not complaining. Hooked onto your standard Picatinny rail. Moving on next, bipod. We have the standard mil spec Harris bipod. Yes, there are a bunch of better bipods out there, but there's very few bipods that have the proven track record as the Harris bipod does. Other than that, this is kind of where my knowledge of the rifle ends, unfortunately. So I do believe this is an aftermarket barrel. I had a couple other people who are much more knowledgeable on bolt guns. I am not a bolt gun autist, so I'm just doing my best here, but they told me it's definitely an aftermarket barrel. It is thick, it is heavy, it is not tapped for a suppressor. 20 years ago, suppressors weren't as common in the law enforcement world as they are now. I mean, I could obviously tap it for one, but it did not come with one. Also, it could have been a cost thing. At the time, it was a smaller agency that had this rifle built out, so no suppressor there. I do know it was bedded to the stock. I do believe they did some accurization work on the trigger just to make it a really nice trigger. I don't know what they did, unfortunately. And I don't know the name of the stock, even though I've seen it a lot. And I looked all over it, I couldn't find anything. I talked to a bunch of other people. They all recognized it. They just didn't know the maker of the stock. It's got a nice adjustable cheek rest. And of course it's an FDE because that's the best color. So that's kind of the basics of the rifle. Once again, chambered in 308. It's a NATO round. Like I said, this was used for law enforcement. Possibly came from a military, leftover pile that then sold, or however they do that. So 308, definitely enough for what this weapon was designed for. And honestly, I believe this weapon was designed for that 300 to 700 yard range in there. Just an accurate bolt rifle that you can put rounds on target reliably in stressful situations. Hey, I see you there watching this video thinking about, man, I need a new gun. Well, you always need a new gun. The other thing you need to do is hit like and subscribe and then leave a comment. Do you need a Remington 700? Maybe, maybe not. Also, let me know what you had for lunch. Getting hungry. So how is it to shoot? It's fun. It's definitely a different world from somebody who's not really into bolt guns, not really into that precision shooting, more into that, you know, kind of tactical, rapid, John Wick style, dare I say. Not that good, but you know, I like to shoot fast because it makes me happy. It makes loud noises. It's a different mindset, and you get to slow down and you really get to concentrate. So it's definitely fun to shoot with the heavier barrel, with the nice cheek rest, the bipod, everything. It's really simple to shoot. Had a sand sock. The bullet goes where you want it to go, no questions asked. So the range I went to sight this in was OK Shooting Corral in Tennessee, and they let me use their lead sled, sighted in. First time using a lead sled, honestly, it's awesome. I wish I shot that good normally, but you know, I don't. And even without it, it's still, you can hit a dinner plate at 200, no problem. And like I said, I am a horrible shot. I am not a precision shooter. This is not my wheelhouse, and it was fun and, dare I say, kind of easy. Now I know a dinner plate at 200 yards isn't impressive, especially to my PRS guys, but for someone with, you know, I basically read the long distance shooting handbook. That's the extent of my long range shooting. All right, so use cases. It's kind of questionable to whether or not you need a bolt action rifle. You know, with AR-10s and 308s being able to get accurized, I like the ability of the quick follow-up shots. I think that's overlooked a lot, and especially with 308, you can get 308 and get pretty similar responses with, you know, an M110 style rifle, but there is something magical about having something that is supremely accurate, and just running a bolt is just, it's fun, you know. Harkens back to an older day. So, while for me, this is more of a gee whiz gun, a fun gun with a cool story, I don't know if it's something you should run out and get. Now, if you want to hunt, I think a 308 for most things, you know, I'm not talking out west where you're shooting from one mountain to another, but on the Midwest and the East Coast, I think 308 will take care of most everything for you. And I wouldn't necessarily get this one. I'd get a hunting style rifle, which is going to be a lot lighter. It's not going to have the heavy barrels to dissipate the heat and whatnot. But this rifle does serve a purpose, and if you are somebody who is into the bolt gun, maybe you can add something to your team or your group of friends, and being able to reach out reliably and hit a target. That's not me. Hopefully one of my buddies is a little more into that than me, but I digress. So I think there's a use case, but I think now, especially as a prepared civilian, you'd be better off with an AR-10 style than a bolt action Remington 700. But then again, I'm just an idiot on the internet, so take everything I say with a grain of salt. So battery of arms, pretty simple. You have a bolt, you cycle the bolt, you take it off safe, you pull the trigger. It has an internal magazine, which does what it has to do. I think maybe just I did get a couple issues with the last round. The follower just would get cocked up. I don't know. It was really cold when I shot it, and I also, keeping with traditions of this channel, I did not clean it before I shot it, so it could have been gunked up a little bit in there. But the last round would sometimes get caught up, and I couldn't cycle it forward. So I kind of understand now why in some situations they load it one round at a time. So that is the NSW Ukraine Remington 700. And honestly, it's a vibey gun. I'll take it. She's heavy. She's a heavy girl. You feel cool shooting her, and she's fun to shoot and fun to bring out. So really, the most important thing that guns are there for is making you feel good. So this one definitely makes you feel good. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is my Remington 700 NSW. Let me know what you guys think, and as always, have a good day.